Okay, so now we're going to cut out the prop hole, get the servos done properly, and then we will have ourselves get much closer to an actual airplane. So this is pretty easy. Be very careful. Do not cut any of these wires, but try to cut out the prop hole. Follow the inside. It's a little awkward. Kid might have problems with this. You got it. Oops, a little bit of a problem there. Just try to get under it. You may need to go to the other side to get it all the way. Okay. Other side, let's see what's going on. It's just needs a little bit of help right there. Just follow it through. Don't go too deep, or you're going to cut the motor leads. Pretty well protected, but still, just be aware of it. There you go. So, there we go. It's our prop hole, don't need that anymore. And we are getting close. Very, very close indeed. So next up, we're going to center the servos. So the first thing I want you to do is turn on the radio. Throttle is down, all right. If you happen to have the prop on, it's not gonna be a problem, but be careful. A good thing to do right now, while I'm thinking about it, is get yourself a little bit of tape. And I like to put a little bit of tape right here, as unattractive as it is, to keep this, the deck kind of can lift up and under the prop last. So I just put some tape there to kind of hold it, keep it from separating. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fish out the screws that we used to the little tiny ones, remember, that we saved. I went on and on about, and you can't lose these. And now we're going to retrieve them, the little tiny screw, all right? And it's going to be that bad boy, okay? And if you went ahead and lost this, but didn't lose the big ones, I'll show you how to fix that, make that work. It's kind of violent to the servo, but these are cheap servos, and it's more important that you get flying than you do perfect version of the right part and everything. You're just kind of working with what you got. So if you lose the little ones, I'm going to show you how to use the big ones. Okay, so so what I want you to do now is you throttle down, transmitter's on, trim tabs are centered. So that's not a centered trim tab, that is a centered trim tab. Okay, this little guy's in the middle, and that is centered as well. So put that in the middle, okay? Throttle should be all the way down. This is this trim tab. This one doesn't matter. Okay? So we have this on. Now we're going to pull the battery, pack out. We are going to vivify the deck again. Look at, there we go. So you may notice that the servos move around a little bit. We want to cut this middle piece now and cut that about 1/4 inch between the two Elevons so they can move freely. I'm not fancy about it. You can, put a little V in there. That's how the plans are done. This looks a little janky. See how they're different lengths? I don't really care. I'm just going to make it look a little better. There we go. All right. So now we have servos. They move. See, the surfaces move up. And what we're going to do is we want to have the servos perfectly vertical. And so it turns out that when we turn this thing on, that the servos move forward probably a little bit. So we're going to try and find the most vertical spline on here. So it's got little splines on here, and that is that's actually probably that's pretty good. They've got a couple of degrees between them. Do not lose these little screws again. They're over here safe. And this one over here, that looks a little forward. So I'm going to try and get it back a little bit. I want them to be as close to vertical as you can get them. If they're a little off, it's fine. You're going to fix it with trim tabs. They're going to be, that one's about perfectly vertical. You can see that. It looks a little forward. Video camera. But that's a little bit back, but I'll live with that. And that one's, oh boy, a little bit forward. Let me see if I can get it back. So you pull it off. This is why we didn't put the screws in initially. You might need to get the Elevon not on the table if you have to go back. So this is available as a spline spot, but it's kind of too far back. I mean, I want as close to vertical as I can get. I'll take forward or backwards. And that's closer to vertical than the one that was back. Okay, so that's it. That's what we're going with. So take your little screw, and this is the right one, and your screwdriver, and you're just going to put this in really gently and screw it in while holding this, all right, until it just sort of seats itself. Okay, that's it. That's in. That's going to keep that thing from popping off. Now, I told you I'd show you how to do the case where you lose one of these screws, which I promise you will. So, well, lo and behold, I actually lost the screw. That's awesome. Went and fell down there. I'm not going to crawl around for it. So, instead of crying and whinging and whatnot, you just basically take some cutters. Here, we'll use the ones that we have. And you're just going to cut the screw in half. All right? In terms of its length. So, it's about as long as the other shorty. Okay? That was a little small one that we had. So it's not really cooperating. Come on, there we go. All right, it's all torn up and nasty looking. It's got a little flat edge on it. You might want to just kind of try to clean that up a little bit. Then you take this short screw and you're just going to shove it in there and use it to get in there and solve the problem and hold that arm on. That's all it's got to do is hold that arm on. And you just sit there and you just force it in there. And that's good. So that's going to hold it. All right. So I have saved you, I promise, a bad day at the field because you don't have the right screw. That'll actually get it done on these servos. Kind of ruins the servo, but that's fine. Okay. So the next thing to notice is we have to establish flight trim on this airplane. And what flight trim looks like is, actually turns out that, so we're going to put some weight right here. Okay. So this thing's held down. And you can hear the servos kind of making noise. They're fighting a little bit. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to use the trim tab to make them exactly vertical, both of them. And see that trim tab moves them back and forth a little bit. Keep moving. So I'm going to try to move this, the aileron trim tab, this guy right here. I'm using it to adjust so that they're kind of exactly the same. Both of them vertical perfectly. It's just a couple of clicks to the left in this case. So that's pretty good looking in vertical. And that's pretty good looking in vertical. All right, so I used the trim tab to fix what I couldn't do physically. And then we take our needle nose pliers, and then we now need to establish flight trim. And perfect flight trim on these airplanes has reliably been shown to be about the thickness of this blue foam that we build with, 1/4 inch. And this right now you can see with the, let's put some weight back there so there's no question. This should be able to slide under, just under that Elevon, and I can't do it right now. How are we going to fix it? There's two ways we could do it. One is we could pull back on this trim tab here and get some up control. All right. But that is not, it's almost enough. I can almost get it underneath it there, but not quite. But I would rather keep that neutral anyway. I'm going to fix this physically. All right. So that's back down low again. All right. Lost about half of how much it was up before. And the trick is this, is you go and you grab this and practice on a coat hanger before you do it. So here's some extra coat hanger. What you're going to do is you're going to take this piece of wire and you put your fingers on both sides of it, on opposite sides, like this. One on this side, one on that side, and you roll it into your fingers, all right, while holding the wire straight. So this is a straight wire now, right? Nothing going on. And then you roll it into your fingers, and this takes strength, so you may need some help if you're a kid or just don't have strong hands. And I've put a little kink into it while keeping these guys pretty much straight, and I've made the wire shorter by doing that. So you can practice that a few times. Just go, take some strength, go, ow! There's another one, okay? So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to make this shorter by kinking it, and by paying attention to how far up this thing goes as a result. Now so now you see why we can make things shorter, but we can't make them longer, because we're doing this little trick. So I'm going to grab that there, put my fingers in the right spots, and I'm going to kink it a little bit. And that is pretty much looking perfect to me. Yeah, that's good. See, I can just get it under. Yep, that's exactly right. That's the right flight trim for these. Okay, we got this one over here. We're going to do the same thing. This is not even close. This one's down a little bit even, right? You can hear the servo kind of fighting it. So I'm going to have to kink it extra little bit. So I go and we grab it. And get it up a little higher if you want. And then just go, yeah. And try to match this one. That's going to be the easiest way to know how far you need to go. There we go. Those two are looking a little more like each other. That looks good. Let's see if it's the same trim. Ah, yes. Very nice. Okay. That might be a little too much, actually. We'll see. All right. Anyway, so that's our flight trim. So that flight trim is going to be very important. Understand what that is. Understand how to establish it. We spent a lot of time just making this pretty solid, so this flight trim is not going to change. All right? That's why we spent a lot of time on that. All right, so we now have control surfaces. That's going to be up, that's down, that's left, that's right. So up, down, left, right. Pretty exciting. That's your little motor going a little bit. If you don't have a prop on there, you can try it a little bit, but don't run it hard with no prop on there. All right, or for very long. All right, we're going to take everything apart now. And we're almost done with this airplane.